now. So you're a few years in. You've made some headway. You've got some advertisers. You've got some subscribers. People like Mary B. out there, right, who are really enjoying your publication. And then the whole world comes to a screeching halt. So this has affected everybody, right? No one's immune to the effects, especially economic effects of COVID-19. And gosh, you're in the print industry, and so people aren't even out and about anymore. They're not going to stores as much. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe people are reading things, but no one wants to touch anything anymore, right? So
they wouldn't even want it to touch their groceries. I just remember my husband coming home from the grocery store. We had all the groceries in the driveway. It's like, yeah.
So how do you shift? What were the things that presented the most challenges to you during this time, when COVID came into being, and then how did you shift with your publication? What did you do?
Well, so we, as a Florida publication, we cover travel, culture, music. There's just a lot of lifestyle and travel content. And to that end, we have a lot of travel and tourism advertisers. So obviously with COVID and the economic shutdown, essentially nationwide, travel and tourism industry was impacted drastically. So pretty immediately, our travel and tourism industry partners and advertisers started calling and canceling their advertising plans for the rest of the year. And so it wasn't like I had a choice. I couldn't say, oh no, you can't do that, because they really had no one staying in their hotels. I felt for them. I understood the position. They immediately saw a evaporation of their revenue overnight. And so we also felt the evaporation of that revenue overnight. And a lot of our advertising just went down immediately. So that was one thing. And then that's the most obvious thing. But then we had the distribution issues with people not being in airports, no events, hotel rooms don't want the magazines anymore in the rooms. They don't have any guests, number one, but when the guests come back, they don't want anything in the room that can't be sanitized. So we really had to struggle to figure out how, even if, like I said earlier, I could control my circulation, I could control how many magazines I had out in the marketplace. But then half of those places were gone overnight because I couldn't distribute them and no one was traveling. So no one's buying magazines in a news stand in an airport. So why would I pay the marketing fees for them to be there? So anyway, we had to quickly adjust, and I've made the decision pretty early on. And a lot of other magazines I saw throughout the state didn't make the decision to stop printing. They kept printing through the pandemic. And I have seen a couple of those bigger titles in Florida actually close now. And I do think it probably was a result of the decision to continue printing. I'm glad we stopped printing when we did. Our spring issue, spring 2020, was on the newsstands March 1st. And obviously the pandemic went into full effect March 15th or something. I remember I was promoting the issue. I was driving from Ponte Vedra down to Tampa to go on one of the Tampa morning daily shows. And I wrote about this in one of my editor's notes, but I was heading down and this coronavirus thing was like out there, and we knew it was impacting things, but it was going to be over soon. So I went down to Tampa and I was preparing. I was on the phone with my PR firm. Okay. The PR firm's back in the picture, and talking to them. Well, what if I get down there and all these events are canceled, that I'm talking about, because I'm going on to talk about events in Florida. And she's like, well, don't worry about it. Just keep going. You're still on. They're having you on. And so I go on this show in Tampa. I'm so excited about it. I've never been on a morning show in Tampa before at that point. So it's a new market for me. I've been on a lot of shows in Jacksonville and some in Orlando, but Tampa was like so exciting. I get down there, I do the show. I talk about, this is the new issue, our spring issue. I probably have it here on my desk somewhere. All of these great events in Florida. Spring training is one of them that you should definitely do. And I get into my car to drive back to Jacksonville, and it's announced spring training is canceled, and just like one thing after the next just started canceling. And, the NBA had canceled, I think, that morning. And that was the big topic of conversation. What if everything else canceled? So it was just a domino effect really from that moment on. And it became very apparent very quickly that we had to switch gears in a major way. So I did decide not to print. but it was so early on. Our spring issue was out there in early March. So people weren't expecting as a quarterly magazine another publication until summer. So we had some breathing room and we had time to shift and think about it and make some decisions that cut costs before people realized, oh, there's no Flamingo magazine coming out right now. So that was nice that we had.
Not the top thing on people's mind right away, right?
Right. But eventually it became, people were unhappy, subscribers were unhappy, but they managed, they sort of, I guess they gave us some grace. A lot of people were like, we understand, we're going to take in this content digitally. We're going to embrace the newsletter and the website. But to that end,
that's difficult because people have paid for a subscription that they're expecting something and it's like the idea that am I taking something away? Also,
reading a magazine is so different than reading something on your computer. I get it. I read my newspaper. I'm a huge newspaper person still, but I read it on my phone. I read it online. I do not get the print newspaper. I haven't gotten the print newspaper in probably 10 years. But the magazine is different. So we were really trying to walk that line once it became apparent. Yeah, we had to tell our subscribers, you won't be getting a magazine. We cut the team. Unfortunately, I had to cut my PR person. I had to cut my social media person. I had to cut the hours of most everybody else back to basically nothing for a while there. So only a couple of core essential people were left during the sort of height of the pandemic. And, it was just survival mode at that point. I want the brand to survive. We've built something great. If we go to print, we're going to spend away all the money in the bank account. There's no revenue coming in to refill it. And it's just what it was. But I think that decision definitely helped us to stay around, and we're able to come back now and release our print issue for the anniversary. And we've brought back that revenue. Advertisers are coming back now. So as the economy and people start getting more comfortable, moving around again and traveling, that's all, just helping our business recover. But in the meantime, we learned so much about digital media and producing content digitally that was always in the back burner because the focus was print. And we had a website and we had newsletter, we had all these elements, but they were never in the forefront. So coronavirus definitely pushed all of that to the forefront and forced us to rethink how we put out our content and rethink the content we were putting out, how often we were putting it out. So we now actually put out more stories than ever because of not having the magazine as sort of the driver of what we put on our website and just having no really sort of set schedule around it, but deciding, well, how often do we want to put out content when there's no magazine sort of dictating our
and you mentioned you started like an electronic newsletter. How often does that come out?
That comes out once a week. And it's called Fresh Squeezed, and it really gives people a variety of content. It features our latest stories. It also has some events in it from around the state. It has a Feel Good Florida in it. So every week there's a heartwarming story that is supposed to make you smile. This week's story made me cry. It was so heartwarming. But yeah, so it's just a great sort of all around editorial newsletter. And then we have once a month our Key Lime culinary newsletter, which is all about, of course, food.
I'm getting hungry, Jamie. All this and missing Florida with this fresh squeeze.
Well, you need to subscribe to our newsletters, and you will have lots of food inspiration. And we cover chefs and recipes and all Florida, of course. So yeah, so we did the newsletters, and we just amped all of that up, growing our subscriber base for our newsletter, growing our web traffic, changing our strategy for social media, and so that's been a silver lining because those things have all grown tremendously through this time.
Well, I think every entrepreneur has challenges that they have to adapt and shift to. And a lot of people have had to do that in the last year with COVID, and especially in the print and moving to digital and trying to figure out how to balance both of those.